But there's a tagline that I use a lot in my business, which is your impact deserves to be shared. And
Ooh, wait. That was too good to not say again.
yeah,
What?
so I'm like, I could say it again.
I
So,
know.
your,
Tell me the
yeah,
tagline of your business again.
your impact deserves to be shared. And so and there's a lot of, I use the word deserve specifically because it's like, it's a worthiness thing. And I work with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women are like, "Oh, what I do is not so important." So they're talking to that impact piece. They're like, "I don't have an impact." And I'm like, "Yes, you do." And then they're like, "Well, I don't deserve to put it out into the world, or no one cares." And it's just a constant reminder that we don't know the impact that our story has on other people.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and I have a stunning guest for you today. I cannot shout to the rooftop enough about what it's been like to get to know Isabella, and I want to take you on a journey today. And with that, here's what I want to do. I want to introduce Isabella, and I want her to tell us a little bit. Like, wait. Let me tell you how we met. We met through a friend, and we both had these synergies. And we were like, hey, listen, I think we need to hang out to share each other's stories. And when I got to know her more and her story unfolded, I realized she was the absolute perfect person that I wanted everyone in my audience to meet. And so, with that, I want to start with you telling us a little bit about what you do right now, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into that later. Let's take it away,
Absolutely.
Isabella.
Thank you so much for having me. And I remember I think we were scheduled to do like a 15-minute call, and it turned into almost 2 hours. So we'll try to keep it concise today. But I am a podcast strategist and ghostwriter for entrepreneurs, for experts, thought leaders. And that just means that I get to learn from the best people in their industry and then help them turn that into a podcast where they're kind of monologue style chatting away with folks. And it's really wonderful because I get to use the skills that I learned as a journalist in this new career without necessarily having to stay in journalism.
Well, that's right. You started in journalism. So tell us a little bit of the beginning of your story that led you into this new path that you're on.
Absolutely. So, I thought I wanted to be a journalist since the time I think I was in sixth grade. That was the first time, maybe earlier than that. But it was around the time where I joined the school newspaper in my elementary school. And from there, I was like, this is all I ever want to do. I went to college for it. I got my degree in communication, specialized in journalism. I did all the internships. I actually did one at the Vatican for a year, which we can dive into. It taught me a lot. And I graduated in 2020. So it was a terrible year for everyone. And that meant that I didn't have a graduation and I didn't have the traditional job market to graduate into. And I was fortunate to get a job. It was at a magazine and I was doing it. And you know, when you're just doing something because you said for so long that that's what you were going to do, but not because you actually wanted to do it. And so I was there and I was like, why am I here? But I had built up this identity of I'm a journalist for so long that it really took a lot of breaking away from it and a lot of just like letting it die a little bit to start to let go and start to evolve into something new. And now I'm just like, I do identify as a podcast strategist and as a ghostwriter for podcasts, but I try not to be so attached to that identity because I know that at any point it may not resonate anymore.
Man, I relate so much to your story because that's kind of like my whole life wanted to be an astronaut. And then it was like, wait a minute, going through college and shifting my perspective. And I stumbled into real estate and that now is my identity. But through some of that resonated so well because you're like breaking apart that old piece of you or that new thought process of, hey, I am no longer this, but I'm this and transitioning into this. Now, you do your own stuff now. You work for you. What did that feel like to let go of all of that working for somebody else to now working for yourself?
Yeah, it was definitely hard because I didn't think that I would do it so early. I ended up quitting my first job out of college about 9 or 10 months after having graduated. And that was very early. I think I had a lot of thoughts on who am I to do this? I'm so young to do this. But the advantage that I had was that my parents are both entrepreneurs by necessity, having emigrated to the US, like just needing to make things happen. They always wanted me to start my own business. They were always like, you should be independent, you should make your own hours, you should do your own thing. And I was like, I'm here to climb the corporate ladder.
Oh,
I wanted the stability. And they were
yeah.
like, why? But I really think it was through seeing them, go through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship.
Mm.
I was afraid of it a bit. So I knew that it was something that I was eventually going to do just because, good old childhood conditioning of it. But I didn't think it was going to be that early.
Man, I love hearing that you're like, well, I saw them do this. I want to do this. Like so many good nuggets out of that. Tell us a little bit about the exciting project that you're working on right now. Because I know you have so many, but pick your favorite one.
So the one that I'm shouting from the rooftops is I'm doing 70 interviews in the span of about 50 to 60 days. And it started because I was just going to do 30 interviews in 30 days. I posted a thread and 70 people, actually more than 70 people replied. It's just that 70 is the only amount I've been able to actually squeeze in. And now I'm dedicating my time to getting to know the most amazing people. And each interview is so different, but it has completely opened up my mind to just what a good conversation can get you.
Mm-hmm.
And I've helped my clients do that for so long, but doing it for myself, I'm like, wow, there's a reason that so many people love this medium of podcasting.
Absolutely. This is actually, I love that you said that. This is one of the reasons why my heart was opened up to the idea to have a podcast because I could share the stories that everybody has because anybody and everybody has a story, even if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're like a crazy awesome business owner. And in that, I get to hear the most incredible stories. And sometimes it's a little bit of like an arm pulling situation where I get people to be on the podcast because they're introvert and obviously I'm not. But with that, I imagine that the end result is you've been able to help all of these people or maybe network better with these people. Tell me some of your favorite parts of that.
Yeah, so it's so funny. The conversation after the interview is oftentimes even better than the actual interview. That happened to me today where the interview was great. The person shared such amazing tactics, but afterwards she was like, "Hey, you said this one thing." And then we got into a whole conversation about it and she left and she sent me a DM like 2 hours later and was like, "Hey, I'm still thinking about that one question." And while it may not be a question about podcasting, it's not like she's turning into a client right now. But just the fact that I'm planting a seed, she asked me questions that then planted a seed in my mind. And so we're able to just spread these different reflections and just nuggets all over the place. And that's been so exciting because more than one person has said, I've been thinking about that question ever since you asked it. And just that opportunity, I'm like, oh, wow, I got to have such an impact.
I love that so much. Why? This is a good question then. Why doing all of this? Why is this so important to you?
So I do think I still have a big piece of, you mentioned like everyone has that story. And I think that that's the original reason I wanted to go into journalism was to find those stories, to ask the really nosy questions. So I think there's that is giving room for myself and for other people to tell their story. But there's a tagline that I use a lot in my business, which is your impact deserves to be shared. And
Ooh, wait. That was too good to not say again.
yeah,
What?
so I'm like, I could say it again.
I
So,
know.
your
Tell me the
yeah,
tagline of your business again.
your impact deserves to be shared. And so and there's a lot of, I use the word deserve specifically because it's like, it's a worthiness thing. And I work with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of women are like, what I do is not so important. So they're talking to that impact piece. They're like, I don't have an impact. And I'm like, yes, you do. And then they're like, well, I don't deserve to put it out into the world or no one cares. And it's just a constant reminder that we don't know the impact that our story has on other people. There might be someone listening to this episode or the next episode of your show, and they go, wow, that that was the spark. That's the thing that led me to make the next decision, that led me down, 5 years down the line. Sometimes we turn around and we go, it was that one day back in 2024 that changed it all. And we don't have control over that, but we can do our part by just sharing our story.
Absolutely. I've heard so many incredible stories, and I've also heard people just get that one idea or they start small. Like some of the silliest people that even I follow on social media, random people like, oh, I do a thing. And now all of a sudden she has so many followers, or I do a thing. Or I just told a little bit about toddler years. I'm in toddler years right now. And it really does mean a lot because it's like a sense of community by you putting it out there on the internet, and the people that you're going to attract. Hopefully they're all cool people, right? But that way you get to really feel like this big, huge world is actually a lot smaller, and that we're all living this really crazy life right now. And to be able to share that impact is so cool. How are you sharing everything that it is that you do? Like, what are the best ways that I can have everybody come find you?
Yeah. So the absolute main place is going to be my podcast. Thought Leaders is the podcast. It'll be launching very soon, and you'll be able to see all of those different interviews. But otherwise, you can search ISA Media Inc. So ISAEDIAINC on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And I'm showing those snippets from the conversations. I'm showing snippets from my own stories. And really, it's just all about letting people know that there's so much power in their voice. And I love the written word, and I love people who are sharing via blog and via LinkedIn, but there's just something about hearing someone's voice and hearing how their emotion comes off of it. And so just getting a little taste of that by looking it up on ISA Media Inc.
I love that. Now, whenever somebody goes to work with you, what are like the couple little baby steps that you make sure to have them accomplish first?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely content and then their concept of themselves almost. So first, the content is, don't treat your podcast just like a diary. I think so many people start their show and think, oh, this is just for me to talk or for me to bring my friends on. And when you start it that way, it might get you initially going, but it's not going to serve the person on the other side because you're not thinking about that other person. You're not thinking about what they need. And for example, right before this, I'm going to, share the secret sauce. Tiffany, you were sharing with me like, oh, I want people to get this out of it, and I want there to be an outcome like this. And so you're thinking about the listener, and that's one of the most important things. And so I always have to help people and just remind them, this is not about you. This is about what the other person on the other side is going to get. And then the self-concept piece is really coming up against that fear where I had a client where she was used to doing huge corporate presentations. She was the face of the company for a while. She did all their sales trainings, everything. She was happy to be on camera. When it came to her own podcast, she completely froze up. And she was like, oh, because I'm representing myself now, not this company. Right. And so she then needed to be comfortable being seen, being heard, being the person to really bring the information. And that is a very vulnerable process. Right. That requires a little bit of, just someone to hold your hand through it. And I'm so honored to be that person.
That makes so much sense. 100% relate. I hope you know, Isabella, I'm a little bit nervous just to interview you, even though we're friends. We've been doing this. I just have such a passion for helping somebody out that I want the message to be clear. So I'm reminding myself, sit up straight, don't mumble. How can I make this the best content ever that is going to be meaningful to take somebody's 20 or 30 minutes or however long those chunks are to be able to get across to people? Are there any new projects that you're working on or that you're excited about doing in the future? Because obviously you're so young. You've got so much time.
Yes. I feel like anything is possible. The world is my oyster. Yes. And I sometimes have to just remind myself of that so that I don't feel that pressure. But no, I think right now my energy is definitely going to this podcast and then my clients' podcasts and getting on more shows like this, just being able to love on this medium of audio, of podcast. Maybe you're watching the video with us on YouTube, but just getting into these conversations is a passion of mine right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, there's a wide variety of everybody that I try to tap into to add to my network. Is there anything like what's anything holding you back? Like the next person that I need to send your way. Like what are your fears in all of this? People need to see
Yes.
and hear that we're real too, right?
My gosh, I think there is probably not a week that goes by where I go, am I going to end this business this week? And that normal doubt that I think every person who has started a business or has started a podcast, has started a project, I think we all go through that messy middle valley of
Mhm.
despair. And I think really for me, it's connecting more and more to those thought leaders, those experts that are also on a mission. And
Right.
I just want to join them and give them a little boost. Because when I see that is when I go, you know what, that's why I didn't quit last week. And that's why I won't quit this week, is because I get to be part of the story of so many other people.
Oh man, that's incredible. It's literally community. We're doing so many things. Just I love hearing about all this. Are there any like game-changing nuggets that are helping you right now that you want to enlighten the people that are listening?
Would say there are so many amazing tools. I'm big quality with microphones and with cameras and everything person. However, I wouldn't let that stop you from sharing your message. And so we were chatting right before of like using Riverside, for example. It's a
Mm,
tool that is $29 a month and it's going to let you AI edit your show. It's going to enhance the audio. It's going to take out the really loud air conditioning that I have right behind me. It's going to help you with the clips and it's just going to get you started. And so my biggest nugget would be focus on the content, focus on connecting with your listener and your guest, of course, and use the AI tools that are around us so that you can build that momentum. Later, you can worry about upgrading everything.
oh, that's a good way to put it, right? Because I mean, I said, hey, my cat might knock at the door and I'll have to edit that out. So
Yeah.
having those cool tools actually are what held me back in trying to start my own podcast because I was out thinking the process that I don't know what I don't know. So I want you guys to understand that there are incredible people out there as my audience that I want to refer you to. And one of them happens to be Isabella. Like, if you want to do a podcast, you've got tons of great content, you've got this idea, you've got this passion burning inside of you. It is your responsibility to take that and put it in the hands of the right person. So that way you could share your story. Because if we get it on media, right, then it lasts a little bit longer than it just being kind of stored up in your own brain.
Absolutely.
Are there any good books on leadership that you recommend to anybody, or even like positive mindset? I have so many that I go through. I always like to hear anybody that's working on a new one right now.
Yeah, so I love everything John Maxwell. And I know you asked for books, but because we're on the topic of podcasts,
Yes.
the John Maxwell Leadership Podcast is
Hmm.
so good. And I really appreciate the way they format their show, where it's a lesson from John Maxwell, but it's also their CEO and I believe their chief of staff talking about how they apply it every day. And so you see the reverberation of his lessons. But I always have, there's a bookshelf right above me. I always have the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, and the Laws of Communication, 16 Laws of Communication. Just such good, simple, different tactics or different reminders that
Right.
I just keep coming back to.
Those are so good. Some of the books that I have, I totally relate that it's one of those things that I'll get it on like an Audible, but man, if I want to highlight that sucker, it ends up getting like a permanent copy in my bookshelf so that I can thumb back through it and remind myself either to be positive or to say a certain thing. I love the power of it's gonna sound so crazy. One of the books I absolutely love is Negotiation Tactics, which is Never Split the Difference. Uh,
That is, I know it's a book that everyone kind of rolls their eyes at now, but there's a reason it's so good.
It's so good because I can use these tactics on my 3-year-old because there is a hostage situation whenever you have to tell a 3-year-old to do something.
Yes, and it's all the principles go back to the same foundation. And so I love that book. I'm glad that you brought that one up.
Man, there's some really good ones just about kind of inspiring yourself. The newest one that I was reading, believe it or not, I just finished. It was such a hefty read. What unleashing the not unleashing the power within. It was unveiling for your. Gosh, now I'm gonna remember my book.
That's okay.
It's cool.
I barely remember half of
Okay.
them.
This is like rule number one. I'm not going to look at my phone, but I absolutely have to because the book is so good that I need to share it with you, and I'm going to pull it up on my
Please
Hoopla.
do. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Okay.
I love Hoopla. If a listener has not tried Hoopla yet,
Yes.
they have to try Hoopla. So, while you pull that up, Hoopla is usually through your library account. You can find so many different libraries that give you a free library card if you don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
And Hoopla has the ebooks, the audiobooks, the movies. So good.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up Hoopla.
Yes. The absolute best nugget that I could provide somebody that's like, I need something that I can do with where I'm at. And sometimes where you're at might be a freebie. And the best freebie that I can share with you is the best e-reader, Audible. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. Hoopla's the way to go.
Hoopla's the
It's
one.
It's by John Bevere, Multiply Your God-Given Potential. And I'm obsessed because it's one of these things as a business owner where I'm like, man, I want to do more. I want to help more. I want to be more. I want to be bigger. I want to do things. And this book was the first book that I've read that gave me permission to always want more. Because
Mm,
I think that's a part of my gift is that I can't stop. I can't sit still. I'm a great self-employed person because there's really no boundaries. If anything, you just kind of work into the night, right? And so it was the first book that gave me permission. And it was one of the podcasts that I was just on that she said, "Man, you should read this book." And now I'm like an evangelist for it. But
so
multiply
good.
your potential from within. And it may be something you've tried and tried and tried and tried, but it's not really the thing that's your thing. Find out what your thing is, and then it will actually just happen with effort and so forth.
Yes. I was looking down because I was just writing it down. I was like, I got to make sure I have this. So,
It's
uh,
so good. Well,
I'm
I have to put
excited.
all these little nuggets down in the show notes so everybody can find all the great advice that you've given. Best of all, how to go follow your podcast and be able to find your shorts because you'll be releasing those soon by the time somebody gets a hold of this one. And I am so honored that you're giving me advice. You're going to be working with some of my listeners. I just know it because I'm going to send some cool people your way. And then best of all, you were able to spend time with me and you got me some extra little things to make my podcast better. You've been a stunning guest and I'm so appreciative of you and your help and your journey that you're going on. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap up. Do you have any extra nuggets that you want to leave with us or have we almost said everything we want to say today?
I think there's so much we can go into, but for now, I just want to thank you so much for being a great host. You had such good questions, and this won't be the last time we'll be together. Yeah, I'll have you on my show. We'll keep this going.
I love it. I love it. Thank you again and see you later, everybody.